I hope you're right, Meredith says. As we get closer to the place where the path split into two, I suddenly hear Hardrick laugh echoing in the distance. You know, for Hexol faction guy, you're not so bad. Here, have another drink. I'm still keeping my eye on you, you know. I hear another voice, who I'm assuming is the Lacetti from the Hexol faction. Don't think you can sweet talk me just by pouring me a few glasses of... Hey, this ale doesn't taste like the first one. Do you have different kinds of dwarven ale in these bottles? My friend, you have good taste, Adric says. There is a very subtle difference, but this particular ale does indeed have a higher quality than the others. Hey, this gives me an idea. I'll give you 3 bottles of dwarven ale to taste. If you can correctly identify which one is the most expensive, I'll let you keep all 3 free of charge. How's that sound? Bring it on, dwarf. Lacetti says, if there is one thing I'm fully confident in, is my ability to recognize good alcohol. Hardrick says, I'm hoping you'd say that. I guess I was wrong about the direction in which Hardrick went. From what I just heard, it sounded like he was somewhere in the Hexol faction area. As I look around me, I see that nobody is reacting in any way, which means that I must be the only one who was able to hear Hardrick thanks to my stat device. Maybe I should tell others about this. I mean, yeah, why? What's the problem? Tell the others where Hardrick went. Okay, I take back what I just said earlier about Hardrick. I just overheard him talking to someone from the Hexol faction, so he's most likely somewhere in the Hexol faction area right now. I knew it. Meredith says, let's hurry up then. The last thing I want is these people to gain new reason to antagonize me. Actually, from what I heard, it sounded like they were having fun with the drinking contest, I say. Huh? Meredith says, a little surprised. But either way, we can't let them interact for too long. Who knows what could happen if they get too drunk. Follow me. We keep walking for a little while until we reach a split path. Then we head through the tunnel on the right, which apparently seems to be leading towards Hexol faction territory. According to the markings on the wall, a few minutes later, we suddenly hear Hardrick's loud laughter. He seems to have just finished the drinking contest that he was talking about earlier. You beat me fair and square, Hardrick says loudly. Here is your reward. You most certainly earned it. You're damn right I did, says the Hexol faction guard. You really think serving me 2 bottles of completely identical ale alongside a third bottle with a nearly indistinguishable difference in taste would somehow throw me off my game? I'll have you know that I used to be friends with a dwarf who was 10 times the drinker you are. If he was still with us today, he would have drunk you under the table in a matter of minutes. I'm sure he would have, Hardrick says as we were getting close to him. And now see that he's holding a glass of ale in his hand. While raising it high, let us have a taste in his honor then. May he always watch over us from above, with a bottle of dwarven ale in his hand and a big drunken smile on his face. Dwarf, the guard says, this may be the first respectable thing you've said since we met. The two of them now clink their glasses and then they have a good long drink before they finally notice us. Well, if it isn't the big boss herself, Hardrick says with a grin. What are you just standing there for? Come here, sit with us, have a drink. I'm afraid that I'll have to refuse their offer, Meredith says. I have a few important meetings to attend after this which will require me to remain sober. Is she always like that? Hardrick asks the Lacetti guard as he pours him another glass of ale. All the time, the Lacetti guard says. Then he takes a sip from his filled glass. What exactly were you two doing here? Kate asks Hardrick as she sees 3 bottles of dwarven ale lined up next to each other. Oh, we were having a little drinking contest, Hardrick says. I asked this fine fellow here to order these 3 bottles according to their prices from highest to lowest. After having only 1 sip from each of them, he passed my test with flying colors. Would you like to give it a try? I happen to have a few more bottles here that I'd love to... No thanks, Kate says. I was just curious, that's all. So what is it that brings you here, Lady Meredith? Lacetti guard says in a disdainful tone. It has been some time since I have been honored with your presence. Spare me your sarcasm, Claycart, Meredith says. I only came here because I was worried that my dwarf guest might get into a fight with someone from your faction. It seems, however, that my concern was unwarranted. From what I heard, the dwarf would have much more of a reason to pick a fight with you than us, Lady Meredith. Claycart says, in fact, he had quite a few choice words to say about you after his first few glasses of ale. Would you like to hear some of them? I would be quite interested, yes, Hardrick says, while giving Hardrick a cursory glance. Now, that won't be necessary, Hardrick says as he puts his hand on the Lacetti guard's shoulder. I was just messing with you, dwarf. There is no need for you to panic. Your secrets are safe with me. You, Hardrick says as he leans back and drinks some more ale. You actually had me worried there for a second. Did I hear that right? You're a voice coming from the darker tunnel of the darker parts of the tunnel, there are insulting words that even a drunken dwarf is too ashamed to share with others. I'm getting curious to know what they are as well. So you finally decided to come out of your hiding place, eh? Hardrick says while looking at the man coming out of the darkness as he pulls out a third glass from his backpack, start filling with ale. You know, I've been calling out to you for ages, but you never answers. You have a seat with us if you want. You can have a seat with us if you want. That won't be necessary, the man says. I'm more than happy to stand. When we get a closer look at the man coming out of the shadow, we see that he is wearing a boot on his head, socks on his hand, while having a whole bunch of unintelligible gibberish written on his shirt, pants, which surprisingly are at least worn correctly. Oh, so this must be guy who touched Magium then. She said almost every person went insane. She didn't say every person went insane. But he's also walking barefoot, but considering that Flower has been doing the same since we met her, that doesn't really seem all that weird to me anymore. You say that you want us to tell you about the insults, Claycart says, but you weren't that far away from us when the dwarf said them. Surely you must have heard at least some of the words. Unfortunately, I was in a trance at that time, so I couldn't hear anything of that you two were saying, says the man with the boot on his head. My apologies, good sir. A trance? Hardrick says confused. What are you, some kind of shaman or something? No, nothing of the sort, says the man with the boot on his head. I was simply trying to get in the right state of mind to communicate with the Creator. He speaks to me from time to time, although admittedly it's become harder lately to separate his actual words spoken to me from my own delusions. Don't try to take him too seriously, Claycart tells Hardrick. The poor man's gone mad ever since he touched the Magium note a few months ago. He's been pretty much speaking in riddles ever since. Not all my words are riddles, my good man, the crazy man says. Also, don't you think you are being rather rude to our guest? You have been speaking so loudly the whole time that the poor fellow hasn't had the courage to utter a single word until this moment. Come on now, friend. Will you not do us the honor of joining a conversation? I promise that despite their looks, these are quite respectable folk, and they won't make fun of your unusual appearance. As he speaks, the crazy guy seems to be looking directly at one of the blue crystals from the ceiling. What's the matter, Uverg? Claycart says mockingly. Is your invisible fairy friend from the ceiling too shy to talk to us? I do not think that he is a fairy, Uverg says, looking as if he didn't quite catch on the Lasethi guard's sarcastic tone. Fairies would usually not use these crystals to transfer their consciousness into them, don't you think? Wait, someone just transferred their consciousness into the crystal? Well, usually only Magium does that. Wait, did this guy just talk about someone transferring their consciousness into the blue crystal? Don't tell me that. My friend, will you not at least tell us your name? Uberg says as he's wait, who doesn't what's his name? Doesn't our boy like the what's his name? The overseer do that? My friend, will you not at least tell us your name? Uberg says as he's still looking at the same crystal from before. I'm afraid that even for someone such as me, it is getting a little embarrassing to keep talking by myself like this. Question unclear. We hear a metallic voice coming from the exact crystal that the crazy guy was staring at. Unfortunately, the overseer protocol cannot provide you with a correct answer. If your question is too vague, please rephrase your previous query. The Overseer Protocol. Meredith asks, why does this name sound familiar? The Overseer is the artificial intelligence controls the flying metal contraptions with red and green eyes from Molander, I tell Meredith. As of recently, he has learned to use these blue crystals to spy on people by transferring his consciousness into them. Oh right, Meredith says, I do remember hearing a long time ago that, Billy Bob had reactivated some highly intelligent machine built by Lasethi of old, but I didn't know all the details. Unfortunately, we haven't really been getting a lot of information from inside Olander these past few days, since it has been much too dangerous to keep our spies inside the city. But how would a machine be able to transfer its consciousness into the crystal? Does it even have a consciousness to begin with? From what we have been told, Kate says, the Lasethi who built the Overseer also created a manufacturer's soul for him in order to give him free will. However, the reason why he is able to navigate through these crystals is because he was controlled by the Magium for a brief period of time, and he has managed to retain some of the knowledge that he had access to during those few minutes. The Overseer came into contact with the Creator? Meredith says, fascinating. Hey, you there in the blue crystal, Diane says while looking at the ceiling. If this question isn't too vague for you, would you mind telling us for how long you've been spying on us? The crystal alerted me as soon as your guests were teleported to the underground, which is also when I began to follow you, Overseer says. You've been following us since we came back from the surface? Diane says, shocked. So you've also been listening to our private conversation in the meeting room? Affirmative, the Overseer says. However, it should be stated that your plans regarding the still water called Aiden are of little interest to me. My main focus is currently on unlocking the secrets of these blue crystals, as well as those of the Magium itself. I believe that your Magium node will greatly help me to expedite my research on these topics. You think you can just use our Magium node without our permission? Meredith says in a menacing tone. That is correct. Meredith says, Overseer says, like he just says straight up. It's kind of funny.